to name names, it's not my style, but some of the biggest YouTubers out there, most of the biggest YouTubers out there that have channels focused about photography aren't even the best photographers on YouTube, never mind the best photographers in the world. So stop looking at them for inspiration. It's going to ruin your photography. It's going to stunt your growth in photography. And so understand that's where I'm coming from today when I talk about all this stuff. I am not trying to trash these people. I am not trying to put myself on a pedestal. I'm not trying to put certain types of photographers on a pedestal. My ultimate goal here is to help you improve. And hopefully, in the end, that'll help you sort of recalibrate your photography and help you improve your photography. That's not to say that people that are teaching photography techniques out there or doing gear reviews or have sort of photography entertainment channels don't have their own value. They do. But a lot of you guys out there are looking at their work for inspiration. You're mimicking their work. You're trying to get better by taking pictures that they took, and I just think that's a bad direction to go in because their work isn't that good. It just isn't. Oh, you can say photography's subjective, blah, blah, blah. Maybe what you find interesting in a photograph isn't the same as what they find interesting. Listen, I'm not even comparing my work to theirs. I'm just comparing it to the world out there of photography. So let's get that out of the way right now. This isn't talking about their entertainment value, their learning value. It's all focused on inspiration. So let's start with the why a lot of their work isn't good, or why I think it's not good. Okay, that's what I can say today. From my standpoint, why it's not good. Well, a couple reasons here. First, I would say because it doesn't have to be good. They don't have to be good at photography. They have to be good at YouTube. They're not making their income from photography. They're making their income from talking about photography. So there's no motivation to invest in their craft as photographers. And they aren't doing that. They're investing their time in their YouTube channel. So they're not growing as photographers, and they have no motivation to do so because their channels are successful not based on the quality of their photography, it's based on the entertainment factor. Now, some of them are really good storytellers. However, they're only really good storytellers at telling their own story. That's why they're excellent at vlogging. That's why they're successful on YouTube. They're really good at telling their own story. And it's gonna make me sound like kind of old and grumpy, but that generation's really good at that. They're great at telling their story because they started their life sort of doing so on social media. Again, not knocking it, but it's just something to think about. You know, that's what they're good at. They're not putting the time in to invest in telling a story out there about somebody else. They just aren't. Sure, they go out and take some photographs. Sure, they have nice equipment and go to exotic locations. And sure, if you copy them, you can take similar pictures to them, but you're just taking similar versions of pretty bad photographs, and you probably don't have as nice of equipment, and you're probably not even going to the exotic locations that they're going to. So you're just going to take like a lesser version of what they do, and they lack creativity in their photography. Man, you can even just see it in their YouTube channels. They're all lit the same way. They all tell the same story the same way. They all talk about gear the same way. They all talk about advice in photography kind of the same way. It's very much cookie cutter. It's very much copy and paste. And they all even go through the same life cycle on YouTube. They quit because they're going to go be a documentary filmmaker or a documentary photographer. And then they come back a month later because there's no way they're making anywhere near the same amount of money when they go into that world. And they never really understood that world. So they think they can just dive in, and they can't. And most of them can't cut it in that world because they don't have the time. They don't have the patience. They all could do it, but they give up because they come back to the world of YouTube, which is going to reward them. The other world that they want to get into, the world that I know well, where you spend your own time, your own money doing these long-term documentaries, you're not getting a lot of pats on the back. You're not getting rewarded financially for it. Very rarely are you. So they come right back to this world because it gives them money, it gives them attention. So they never had to be good to be successful. They never had to put the time in. They didn't have to care about somebody else to tell their story properly. They had to just care about themselves. And again, my point here isn't even to guide you in the direction of professional photography because it's not financially rewarding. It's not going to give you a lot of pats on the back or recognition. YouTube or being an influencer is going to give you a lot more instant gratification and probably even more long-term success financially. There's very few of us out there that can make a living purely off of photography. It just is. It's just the reality of the industry. So a couple things on how to recognize these photographers, because there are some really good photographers that have YouTube channels. I don't know if you know any. There's a few red flags before I go into like where you should be looking. And a couple red flags would be, first of all, that YouTuber, go to their actual website. Don't let them pick and choose and pick one or two photos from some sort of exotic location, which is like okay, but it's not really good. Look at their portfolio. So red flag for me when I was researching is like they don't actually have a portfolio of their work, or you go to their website and it's just like wildly disappointing how much repetition there is in their work, or how cliche their work is, or how much their website isn't even focused on photography. It's focused on selling you other things. So that would be a red flag for me right away. So what makes a good image? What photographers should you look for? Why aren't these YouTube photographers good? What are your claims here, Justin? Well, what makes a good image is it has a soul, it has depth, it has a story, it evokes an emotion from you as the viewer. If you look at a lot of these YouTubers' photography, it has none of that, no originality. You don't feel anything when you look at their images. Their photography just evokes the emotion of like, oh, their life seems cool. You know, it's about them. It really is. Now, all of photography, you're injecting yourself a little bit, but it shouldn't be about you unless you're doing a self-portrait project. It should be about how you see the world. Yes, so that's a little bit of you, but it should be about what's out there, not your daily life. Again, if you're doing a project just about you, cool. But a lot of you are interested in travel photography. A lot of you are interested in street photography. So what are the streets like? Tell me something about these places that you're going to. Tell me something about the people, the architecture, the culture. They're not doing that because they're not putting that time there. They're putting the time here on themselves. And so I'm not doing my job as an educator if I'm just telling you all this stuff and ranting and complaining, which is not what I'm doing. I'm trying to help you. So I'm not doing my job if I don't give you some alternatives. I'm not telling you to look at my work. You can, and then make a judgment on whether to listen to me at all or not. And I think that's important too, and you should. But look outwardly. Look if you're interested in light and creative lighting portraits. Look at someone like Christopher Anderson. If you like street photography and quirky observations, look at Elliot Erwitt, who just passed away this year. Rest in peace, Mr. Erwitt. If you're looking for some of the classics of street photography or daily life photography, look at Robert Frank's work. If you're interested in lighting and creating sets yourself, look at someone like Dan Winters and his photography. He does some amazing stuff. If you're interested in street photography or documentary photography, just go through the entire catalog of Magnum photographers. They have some of the most historical and powerful documentary photography and street photography that's happened through the course of history. So check out their body of work and look at the depth there. You will look at these images and you will feel something. Whenever I turn my students on to these photographers' work, it makes me so sad. Some of them know the greats, but when I tell them like, oh, have you ever looked at Magnum? Have you ever looked at James Noctoy's work? Have you ever looked at Richard Avedon for portrait photography? They're like, huh? Who's that? It drives me nuts. But then it makes me happy because then they go to their work and like, wow, okay, this, like a light bulb goes off. They're like, this is amazing work. This is powerful work. This is inspirational work. So go check out these photographers. There's tons of other ones out there. There's so many that are much better than what's on here and what's on YouTube. Go out there and do the research. I'll put a list in the description box below of some of my favorites, but look to them for inspiration. Stop looking here for inspiration. There's some of the best storytellers out there. And I'm not saying you have to achieve that or get to that, but I'd rather have you be a lesser version of them than a lesser version of some of these YouTubers, because a lesser version of some of these legends will be exponentially better than even a good version of a lot of these YouTubers. I hope that makes sense. So thank you guys for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. It was a little bit different for me. Sorry the lighting's going. I don't have the fancy lighting set up like a lot of the other YouTubers, but take this with the intention that I had for it today. It's not to bash any of these photographers out there. I think a lot of them could be really good photographers, but they're more focused on documenting themselves than they are about the rest of the world. And that's okay. But when you guys are looking for inspiration to improve your photography, look at some of the photographers I mentioned. Do a little more research. Look at some of the legends in our community. That's it for today, guys. Thank you for watching. Check out my online classes at Ask Mott by Justin Mott. I've got mentorships. I've got online classes. I've got a workshop coming up in March here in Northern Vietnam. Got a whole bunch of stuff on there. Check that all out. I'll put a link in the description box below. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to have a wonderful day. And go shoot.